everyone, welcome back to the Tune Project. And if it's your first time here, welcome to my channel. I post videos just like this one every single week, as well as covers of popular songs and fiddle tutorials. So consider subscribing. Today we're going to be talking about the secret to getting a really good vibrato. Not just an okay vibrato, not just a mediocre vibrato, but a really, really good one. So stick around because that's what's coming up. So vibrato is a technique that string players and vocalists often use to add just that little bit of an extra something to songs and pieces that otherwise would sound flat. And I'll show you an example of playing a small section of a piece with vibrato and without vibrato. Big difference, right? So the technique that we're going to be talking about today, all you have to do is just flatten your knuckle. It's literally this. So what I'm doing is I'm making the circular shape with my thumb and my index finger, because that's the first finger that we're going to be using it as an example. And all I'm doing is just pushing this knuckle down. So as long as you have the physical capability to just push your knuckle down, you're good to go. So we're going to be doing this exercise first, just without the violin, as an example of just getting used to this motion. So I'm going to go through each of the fingers, because it applies to each and every one, and it's the same exact motion for each finger. So if you just practice this motion of flattening each knuckle, you're good to go. Make sure that your thumb and whichever finger you're using is very relaxed. We don't want any pressure between our thumb and whichever finger we're using. Your thumb is just kind of there as a guide for your finger. So I'm not putting any pressure in between the two fingers. It's just simply resting on my thumb. Okay? So this is the motion that we're going to be using. So once you feel comfortable doing this, we're going to be coming to the violin, and we're going to be using that same motion that we did here on the actual violin. So I'm just placing my first finger on the A string, and we're going to be just flattening this knuckle backward, okay? So we're just flattening the knuckle, laying it back onto the string. And you'll notice that there's kind of this push-pull motion that's happening with my hand, arm, and my finger. So when my finger flattens, it pulls my hand away from the instrument, and then it pops back into place, pushing it closer to the neck. So when you're using vibrato, there's automatically going to be a little bit of space between your first finger, your index finger, and the neck of the violin. So normally when you play without any vibrato, just normally, there's no space there. Your first finger should be making contact with the neck so that you have that stable position. However, when we do vibrato, since we need that range of motion, we need to create that little bit of space. Okay, so you're going to be coming just slightly away from the neck with that first finger so that you have plenty of room to move around. So once you feel confident that you're able to flatten your knuckle back onto the string, we're going to add the bow. So for this exercise that I'll be showing you, this is a great one to just practice vibrato, get warmed up with it, or just get more familiar with it. And for this exercise that I'm going to be showing you, I'll be starting with quarter notes. We're going to be going through a few different note values, but for this first one, I'm going to be starting with my metronome set to 60 as an example. and I'm just going to be doing 4 beats on a down bow and 4 beats on an up bow, okay? So each time that your finger lays flat onto the string, that counts as a beat. Okay, and you'll go through all of the fingers that way. I would recommend doing 2 bows as I just did, so 8 beats total per finger. You'll be going up through 1, 2, 3, 4, and then coming back down 4, 3, 2, 1. The next note value that we're going to be using is the 8th note. So where with the quarter notes we counted 1, 2, 3, 4. With the 8th notes, we're still playing 8 beats total, so 4 on a down bow, 4 on an up bow. However, since the notes are smaller, we're subdividing here. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? And I'll show you what that looks like. So here's the 8th notes. And then our next note value that we'll be using is the 8th note triplet. So what that means is we're still utilizing the same beats, the same note value and everything, but instead of counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, now we're just adding that extra 8th note onto the end. So we're going to be saying 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and for those triplets. So again, I'm going to use my first finger as an example just to show you what that note value looks like. And we're still at 60 with the metronome. So here's what that looks like. With this one, it is a little bit trickier to count, and for that reason I would recommend counting it out loud with the metronome before actually trying to play it. So saying 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so you can get used to what that triplet sounds and feels like before actually playing it, and that'll probably save you some frustration. Another thing to keep in mind when you're using vibrato is make sure to keep all of your fingers in the same area. So when one finger is exhibiting vibrato, the other finger should be curved over, relaxed, as you would normally want in good technique when you're not using vibrato, when you're just playing normally. Here, that same thing applies. We don't want any fingers flying around. We want to keep everything pretty much in the same area so that we have easy access to the next finger that we're going to be using. So far I've shown you how to practice vibrato using quarter notes, 8th notes, and 8th note triplets. The last note value that we're going to be talking about today are 16th notes. So with this one, with the triplet 8th notes, we talked about 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and with the 16th notes, they're going to be counted 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and if you need to count that out loud before actually playing it, feel free to do so. And with my metronome set at 60, this is what the 16th notes would sound like. Okay, so even though this is a little bit faster than the others, we're still maintaining that steadiness, that push-pull motion that we talked about earlier. So the best way to practice this exercise is to go through each of the note values in sequential order. So I'll be showing you how I do that just using my first finger as an example. Ideally, you would go through each of the fingers using 4 beats on a down bow, 4 beats on an up bow per note value. Another tip as you're doing this exercise is to make sure to save bow, just so that you don't run out and you give yourself plenty of room to work with. So those are the steps to follow in order to get a good vibrato. If you follow each of these steps correctly to get that technique that we want, it will work for you. Just be diligent about it. Sometimes learning vibrato takes a little bit of patience. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!